So they say that genius burns bright, but sometimes it burns the house down. And tonight we are going to follow the flame that consumed one of the jazz age's most dazzling women, Zelda Fitzgerald, aka the First Flapper. She was a muse, a writer, and perhaps a ghost that still dances through the smoke of her own legend. So before we begin, quick reminder, episode explores history, folklore, and mental health practices for storytelling and education only. Nothing here is meant to encourage experimentation or romanticize illness or tragedy. Listener discretion is advised. I don't mean to say that flippantly, but I feel
Yeah.
like most people here
Use your common sense,
knows
people,
what it is
please.
that what we're at. So use your common sense, right? Okay.
Yeah.
So now that that's out of the way, we want to welcome everybody to The Haunting Truth. And this is Woo. And with me, as always, is Jaunty Jen, who already
Woo
has
woo.
her dancing shoes on. Although hopefully not the kind that end up in the legend as Zelda's did, which we'll cover later on in the story. So, Jen, I know you are familiar with the Fitzgeralds, but did you
Yes.
know that there is a tie to Maryland? As well as one of your favorite things, a fire, too.
I mean, I do quite a few episodes on fire. I'm not gonna lie. It is well, and also I say that, in jest because everything seemed to burn down because I think a lot of people don't realize they used a lot of gaslight, which means that there was literally basically an accelerant pumping through the walls of every single structure, and they were all made of wood. So not the best thing to
Not the
do.
best
So a
plans,
lot of
no.
things burned down back then.
Yep.
But yes, I do know that there was a Maryland connection. I heard as a rumor. It was never um, validated by Marilyn herself, but apparently The Great Gatsby was one of her favorite novels, was my
Mhm.
understanding. And she didn't make it well known because she was married to an author herself and didn't want to overshadow him because, as we all know about Marilyn, she always put her husbands first.
She did, and I find that really interesting because I had heard that she was actually a bit more intelligent than she was given credit for. So the fact that she liked Gatsby it doesn't surprise me, but it doesn't surprise me that she didn't publicize it well because she didn't want to tick off
Well,
Mr. Arthur Miller.
she had a good person. She was a great actress. I mean, she was the antithesis of the dumb blonde, and that was her catch.
Hmm.
But I mean, she had to be pretty intelligent to consider to stay on top for so long.
I think she did.
Yeah.
I think she was too. Maybe we'll dig into her a little bit more.
I
Um,
mean, there is still some supernatural goings on around her items, her location.
oh, that's a good
Yeah.
one. Yeah, we'll definitely
Yeah.
have to check it out. So we're going to go from one hot blonde to another.
Yes.
Zelda was born on a hot July morning in 1900. Hot July, that's where we're at.
Yes.
Hot
I
July.
mean, if anybody doesn't know, we are recording in July right now, and in our specific area, it is hotter than Satan's taint at this
I-
point in time. So, and I don't say that lightly.
It is one of the hottest on record. I think we're hitting a record high today or
I think it's
tomorrow.
104.
It's hotter here than it is in Florida, is all I got to say.
Yeah, yeah.
That's
So
craziness. Yeah.
it's pretty insane.
That's why we're inside with our
Yes,
AC. Pampered people that we are.
yes,
So she was
absolutely.
the youngest of six, and she was born on the 24th, which is what prompted me to publish this episode this week in honor of her, as this was going to drop on the 20th, to her father, Judge Anthony Dickinson Sayre, who was a stern, respected jurist who served on the Alabama Supreme Court, and her mother, Minnie Machen Sayre, who was an eccentric, emotionally expressive artist. Judge and an
That's
artist.
awesome.
How do you go with that?
Hmm.
Right? So they were part of the upper class elite, with dad being a judge and mom being an artist. And she was from a socially prominent family with deep roots in the region's post Civil War aristocracy. So while not fabulously wealthy, they were comfortable. They had a large home, they had servants, they had social standings, and all of this made Zelda, a celebrity in her own right, before she actually became one on her own merits, because she was one of the upper class elite. Um, but she was bound to become one anyway because she was fearless and rebellious, brilliant and mischievous, with an utter disregard for the expectations of polite society. One of my spirit animals, I think, if she was going to be
Yeah.
one, to her father's horror. So she was known to like climb trees in her best dresses, dive into the local swimming hole fully clothed, sneak out to dances long before she was allowed. She loved attention and had a flair for performance. She recited poetry, she would dance barefoot at parties, and she would charm adults with her wit 'cause she was young and she was cute. And, yeah, she was what she was. Her
Hmm.
mother encouraged this creative streak while her father was like, no, he found it exasperating. So it was kind of
It was
a neat
opposites
that
attract in the
dichotomy, right?
parents. Yeah. And
So
like, that is amazing. Mom's like, just express yourself. And dad's like, for the love of God, don't climb the
put some
tree.
shoes on. Could you
Yes.
get in here? Like, yeah,
Yeah.
it's so funny.
Oh God, it
Her
feels like my
imagine
childhood.
Yeah, I think it's funny. Her imagination was vivid and romantic, and she filled notebooks with sketches and stories, often dramatizing her own life as she was already the heroine in her own story, which we should all be the own
Yes.
heroine of
You
our
should
own
all be the heroine
story.
of your own story.
Yes,
Absolutely.
I
Yes.
agree. And she once said it that she wanted to live life in a hurry, and that urgency actually never left her. So is it any wonder that she captured the heart of a 22-year-old second lieutenant in the summer of 1918 when their eyes met as she was twirling underneath the chandeliers, barefoot to her father's horror, with laughter on her lips and in her heart. So that is where she met F. Scott Fitzgerald, relative of Francis Scott Key Fitzgerald, a distant cousin, the writer of the Star Spangled Banner, which we should all know here in the U.S.
Yes.
He was stationed at Camp Sheridan near Montgomery, Alabama, and he was awaiting deployment to France during World War One. And while not from money, his slim build, meticulous appearance, sorry, and restlessness caught Zelda's eye. She fascinated him with her status, her beauty, and her lack of care for convention, and it was everything that he wanted to capture in writing, which he feverishly did in his spare time, filling notebooks with stories about love and class and the American dream. And he fascinated
Shocker.
her, right?
Yeah.
With his confidence, his ambition, and his insecurity, which created an energy that she really couldn't turn away from. They were both brilliant and romantic to the point of recklessness, and in each other they saw the promise of a life larger than their own apart. However, and again, there's always a however, her
Yeah. Yeah.
parents did not approve. Scott didn't have wealth or status, and writer wasn't the type of occupation that they thought that could provide for their daughter in the way that they thought should
Because
be
that
provided
equals
for.
unemployed.
More times than not, that's what that
Yeah.
means, right? And while
A
Zelda,
struggling writer. Like,
struggling
yeah.
writer, okay,
Yeah.
sounds romantic, but it doesn't really
Yeah.
pay the bills.
Yeah.
So while Zelda didn't care what people thought, she did have a thought for stability, and she was very independent, and she had her pick of the most wealthiest and stable suitors in the Montgomery, Alabama, um, and she did have an eye for adventure and romance. So she kind of wavered between the two. Do I go for stability and, security, or do I go for adventure and romance? And she ultimately accepted Scott's proposal of marriage, erring on the side of adventure and romance, only to break it off when his first novel was rejected in 1919. So stability and security kind of went out at the end. But that didn't keep our writer down.
Okay.
It challenged him, and he met it by getting his novel published. And this novel was This Side of Paradise in 1920.
Hmm.
So it was an instant success. He became famous, financially secure, and he was finally ready to give Zelda the glamorous life that she wanted. And days after it was published, they got married.
Well, and I know people are coming for Zelda right now when they hear this decision, but you have to understand at that time women could not vote. They could not have a checking account. Their father
Mm-mm.
or their husband had to sign for it. They could not have a credit card or have credit of any kind. And if you did inherit something, your husband inherently would own it as soon as you were married. So there was not a lot of choices for women of this class
Nope.
in order to keep their wealth was in order to marry somebody of the same social status as them.
Yep. And then she had that, that rebellious streak that she wanted adventure and romance too. So he seemed to be both of them. So yeah, so don't come for Zelda. She's trying to care for herself as best she can in
Yeah.
this particular point of time. So their life began, right? It was very much a whirlwind from Alabama to New York to Paris to all spots in between. They loved and laughed and battled. He needed control. She needed her independence. His passion was writing first, and she wanted to be his passion first. Um, Zelda herself was also incredibly creative. She danced, she painted, and she wrote on her own, and was actually quite talented by all accounts. So it was in this that Scott found her to be more than a muse. So there are rumors that Scott lifted entire passages from her diaries and letters for The Great Gatsby and The Tender is the Night. Um, and Zelda herself once wrote, Mr. Fitzgerald, I believe that is how he spells his name, seems to believe plagiarism begins at home.
Oh, she
So
came out swinging with the bat on that one, man. She didn't hold back.
she did not. I think she let a lot of things go, but I think it got to a point where she was like, all right, enough is enough." And we do have scholars like Matthew Bruccoli and Nancy Milford, who later confirmed that Scott borrowed Zelda's phrasing and imagery almost verbatim
Oh, that's
from her
horrible.
her letters, like her descriptions of parties, her melancholy about fame, her letters from Montgomery in Paris that they mirrored whole passages in his novels, even including the lines against boats against the current, which we'll talk
Which
about
is like the
a little
most
bit more.
well-known passage in The Great Gatsby.
Yes, it is. So she ended up publishing her own book in 1932 against Scott's recommendation. She did it behind his back, actually.
Well, good for
And
her.
it was called Save Me the Waltz. And when it came out, he was furious. He called it his, claimed that she had stolen his material for Tenor as a Night to do it. So she accused him of stealing her words. He accused her of stealing his words. And it was just not good on either side. So we have two artists like trapped in this mirror where each accuse the other of theft. Each are writing the same story from different rooms of the same house. And this is a reminder that even in the glitter of 1920s, women's voices were often overridden by men.
Yeah, that's why it's called his story and not her story in history.
Yes, that's it. That's exactly what it is.
Yeah,
So at this time, we had asylums such as the Danvers State Hospital in Massachusetts and the Trans-Allegheny Lunatic Asylum in West Virginia that were built under the
horrible,
Kirkbride Plan.
horrible place.
Both horrible
Sorry.
places. We
Yeah.
talked about it in Eastern State Penitentiary. You covered it in Eastern State Penitentiary. But the original intention was to be these grand architectures that were meant to heal through light and air. Highland Hospital, which was a sanitarium surrounded by Miston Mountain Silence in Asheville, North Carolina, was
Hmm.
one of these under the Kirkbride Plan. And it was founded in 1904 by Dr. Robert Carroll. And it was one of the first ones to emphasize healing through diet, exercise, and art therapy for mental
Which is
health,
awesome.
which is very, very good. And this is where
Yes.
they ended up committing Zelda in April 1936
Okay.
um, after years of worsening mental health struggles. Her parents did actually support the decision reluctantly, but they realized that she needed help. And they hoped that the reputation for humane treatment would help her recover. She had been diagnosed with schizophrenia, which back then was a very broad term that
Right.
covered a lot of mental illnesses. And she had symptoms like intense mood swings, paranoia, obsessive religious visions, periods of exhaustion, and she had a fixation on ballet that actually led to physical collapse after years of overtraining. And before that, she had been treated at Pragnini Clinic in Switzerland and Shepherd Pratt in Maryland. So it wasn't unheard of, but her condition kept deteriorating. Scott himself was overwhelmed by debt and alcoholism, and couldn't care for her on his own anymore. He was trying to take care of it for
Yeah. I mean,
himself.
during the end of his life, he had severe alcoholism and depression himself. So it's
Yeah,
hard to care from somebody who's going through something like that if you're doing
yeah,
something very similar and destructive.
yes. So it was thought to be best for everybody, and Highland offered a quieter environment, and the art therapy briefly helped her regain stability. However, as we all know in the asylum space by the 1940s, methods have shifted from their original intentions. So
Yeah.
now we're looking at electroshock, insulin, coma therapy, patients were locked in cages, ice baths, lobotomies, shock therapy, all under the belief that madness could be burned out or shocked away. And this is where she was.
Burning out the
Um,
devil, quote unquote, which
right?
is insane. That's lobotomies of all things.
I
Like, why
can't
would you put a
even,
nail in somebody's brain? Like, it's maddening what they thought was gonna fix somebody back then.
yeah,
And it took too long to fix it. I mean, it went from the 40s all the way to like what, the 80s, until we were like, maybe this isn't the best course of action.
I think it even went
Insane.
longer than that in certain places
Yeah.
because I know in Maryland it went a little
Well,
bit
well into the
longer.
90s. Yeah.
Hmm. Into the 90s. Um, but this is where she was. And then on March 10th, 1948, there was a fire in the kitchen of the hospital. It raced up a dumb waiter shaft to the top floors where she was. And she had been sedated and locked in her room
Oh no.
behind barred windows, and that was standard safety procedures of the time, locking everybody in their rooms after
Oh God.
hours.
And probably like held down on a bed
Yep.
too. Like,
Hmm.
oh,
Yeah. So the
this part's
firefighters
gonna break my heart.
arrived. I know it's terrible, and they arrived to find the building already engulfed. It was a wooden plaster building, as you know, back then, and there was no sprinkler
Yeah.
systems, so it went up fast. They could see the patients trapped inside, but could not get to them through the steel bars.
No.
So 9 women died, including Zelda. Her body was actually identified by dental records and a slipper that they found beneath her remains. And rumors are that that was a ballet slipper because that was her escape was dance and ballet. The hospital was closed forever after the fire, and today there is a plaque on Zillicoa Street that marks the spot where her story ended and her legend began.
That's so
So
sad.
yeah, she was
For
buried in the
somebody who has
Sarah.
such a
I'm
like
sorry.
exuberant spirit, that's just such a tragic end.
And her exuberant spirit doesn't go away. So
Okay.
we're going to talk about that. So she was buried in the Sarah family plot in Montgomery, but in 1975, she did have a daughter with her and Scott named Scotty. Her name was Frances Scott, so they called her Scotty for short, and had her moved to Rockville, Maryland, to be buried next to her husband, who had died in 1940 from a heart attack after years of heavy drinking, stress, and faded fame. Like as you said, he battled alcoholism and debt and things closer to the end of his life. But they have a shared headstone, which bears the final line from Gatsby, which I guess is um, under consideration as to who wrote it. But the line is, "So we beat on boats against the current, borne back ceaselessly into the past." So
Well, it's apropos that it's on both our headstones.
it is, and
Sorry.
it's a shared one, which I think
Yeah, so it's
is a good one.
they both get credit actually at this point. Good for them.
And they did love each other through all of their ups
Yeah.
and downs. Like they most definitely loved each other, and they always came back to each other. So I think that is something to note here. But while her voice might have been stolen in life, it remains after death. So her ghost is said to wander Asheville still. A woman in 1930s is seen near the old ward with the smell of smoke and perfume in the air. Others see her at the Battery Park Hotel, where she once danced beneath the crystal chandeliers. But her presence is not seen or felt as vengeful. It's more restless, creative, and unfinished, like you said earlier, an exuberant spirit that's just still
Right.
out there, trapped between genius and madness, fame and erasure. Um, she was never just a muse. She was a writer, she was a painter, and she was a woman, I think, who just burned too bright for her time. And perhaps that's why her ghost still lingers today, not to haunt, but to remind us that we all have a voice, and every voice is worth saving. So, what is the haunting truth? So for me, there's so many things about Zelda's story that hit true. Um, it actually doesn't seem like a real story. It feels like something that you would make up, but it is. Like her
It's a
place in some of the favorite
like a
novels.
romance novel and a
It
telenovela
is.
and everything like rolled into one, where it's like these lovers who come together and have kind of this very kindred spirit, but at the same time, he's very controlling. And then
Yeah.
he starts stealing her work to keep ahead. And then it kind of turns into this very toxic situation.
Hmm.
So it's a great telenovela, don't get me wrong, but it's sad that it was somebody's reality.
It is. And it's one of those things I think where what you're attracted to most is also
What hurts
what
you the
draw
most?
yes, is also what hurts you the most, right? So he was attracted to her creativeness and her independence and her fierceness, but it was also the same things that drove them apart at
You
the end,
resented.
right?
Yeah.
So it's just something to consider. But this is one of the things that resonates for me. Um, besides their romance and her talent, just the awful reality of the asylums at the time. I mean,
Yeah. And I
that
mean
does
the
not.
one like before, obviously before they had this, because originally asylums were supposed to be Reformation and spiritualism and everything else,
Hmm.
because spiritualism was extremely popular at the
Hmm.
turn of the 19th, in the 1900s,
Yeah.
and that especially after the Civil War. And that's what a lot of these places were. It had basis on spiritualism and rest and creativity. And then obviously that turned after World War II into something and World War One, very, very different,
Hmm.
um, which was not good for the people that was actually being treated at that point
No.
in time, which is she went from a great place to a horrible place in probably the span of 2 years, which is super scary,
Oh,
especially when
that's
you
a
don't
super
have all
quick
your mental
turnaround. Yeah.
faculties and you're not understanding why this is happening to you.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean that's a horror show in and of its own. I don't mind going to haunted places and checking them out. I think the history there is cool, but I always have some kind of
Yeah.
on asylums. I don't.
uh, Asylums and also like even Eastern State Penitentiary, it just has such a different oppressive feel
Yeah.
because it's just like people who are caged who can't get out
Yeah.
and who definitely do not want to be there. I mean, one of the biggest things I know that there was an article done in New York back in the early 1900s, and it was how a woman who was completely sane went into an asylum in New York and they immediately said she was insane and stripped her down and didn't give
Oh
her
yeah.
blankets and treated her. So, how do you know that these people weren't actually completely sane and these very wealthy men were just, it's a tale as old as time, just kept throwing them into asylums to hide them away?
I think back then it was cheaper than divorce. Just have
Yeah,
her declared divorce or have her
yeah.
declare crazy and
And just
locked
and you
away.
can, these days it's really hard to divorce somebody who has any kind of mental incapacity.
Hmm.
But back then it was easy peasy. As long as you provided for them after that, you could divorce them without any regard.
Yeah. I mean, and it only took one person to be like, she's nuts. Throw
Yeah.
her in there, and
Yep.
they would take people. The whole. That's why it's like I have a whole feeling about the asylums. Um,
Yeah, when
to
you
be
said her
fair,
parents were on board, I was like, it made me feel a little bit better that he wasn't
yeah.
just throwing
To
her away.
Yeah, no, and I think to be fair, like in the beginning, it actually did well because they let her write and paint and
Yes.
dance and spend time connecting back to herself, and it was a healthy environment, I think, to begin with. I just don't think it ended up that way.
Yeah.
Um, which is a shame. Um, but with all of that, sublimation of women just is always the undercurrent of everything that we kind of talk about. I mean, I could go on about where this is haunting for me. That like
Yeah.
this is a
I
long
think it's
story
haunting
than
for
it
everybody.
is.
It's like still go into it. So I feel like there's a lot of things that are haunting we could keep going on and on about.
I
But
think so, yeah.
ultimately what is most haunting is I feel like the way that she lived very gregariously, but unfortunately she died very tragically.
She did. So it's no wonder that her ghost is still around, right? And
Oh
I know
yeah.
that it is. Like even if we can't see it in the mists over the ruins of Highland Hospital, it's in the words that we read today and in the movies we watch today. Kudos, Great Gatsby. I thought it was a great movie. So,
Well, and I
she's
think
still around.
her book was made into a movie, I'm pretty sure.
I don't know, but I will tell you that I'm going to buy it because I want to read it. It did not get great reviews. They were like, it's
Mediocre.
Yeah, at best. Like it's
Yeah.
got like moments of brilliance, but like overall it's kind of like but still I still want to read it because it's
The
her.
title, so it might be a title to a movie that wasn't hers, but I know that title, and I've definitely seen that movie, and it's definitely a 1940s 1950s movie.
Yeah. Yeah.
My dad really loved those movies, so I was like, I me and AMC were best friends back in the day.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. But apparently she was a really great painter too, so I got to find some of her works.
works. Yeah.
hmm on that one. One of the books that I read, I was reading Z for Zelda Fitzgerald, which was its own miniseries on AMC for a while. Unfortunately, it wasn't picked up after the first season.
hmm
Um, but which is a shame because she's got a whole relationship with Ernest Hemingway that they didn't
I was about to
tap
say, I
into.
knew
Yeah,
that she had a relationship with Ernest
hated
Hemingway
him,
as well.
hated him.
Like, yes,
hmm
yeah, because
Which was
he was very misogynistic, so I
yeah.
can't
Yeah, he
feel
was
that
coming
she
up the
would
same
really
time
have
as
a
Scott,
good,
and Scott, like him, had like a buddy relationship, and like they
yeah,
both thought that they were like mentoring each other, and yeah, and Zelda did not like Hemingway at all, and it
no,
caused a lot of friction. So
yeah.
I really would have loved to watch that. So I'm gonna do some more of that, but I do want
Because
to watch
even
that.
when you read Farewell to Arms, like
hmm
it's written in a very
Oh, he is.
mi-
She's like anybody who talks about.
misogynistic manner.
She's like anybody who talks about how manly they are all the time is
Yes,
not.
yeah,
There's some things she's like, he's such a poser. And I loved her clarity on that and her bluntness. So I gotta take a look at all of those things. So we'll link all of those in the notes.
yes.
If you're not familiar with that, please take a look and let us know your thoughts on that because I feel like she had a very honest way of looking at things in her own. Uh, she didn't let anybody influence what she was or what she was thinking. So
She spoke her truth
she did.
in clarity, and she didn't
Yeah.
really pull any punches when
Mm-mm.
it came to what she thought. So you
Nope.
gotta love that about her.
I do. I do too. So until next week, Seekers, unless Jen, you have anything else you want to add to that?
No, no, we'll see you guys next week. Please like, subscribe, tell us how much you like, give us some comments. We always like to hear from you guys. And
Yep.
as always, please return and listen to our previous episodes because we do talk a lot about some of the things that are linked here between fires and, asylums and things that you might be interested in.
Yes, we do. So thank you for joining us to honor this bright spirit that's had such an impact on innumerable lives. Word of advice for this week, dance more and care less about what
Yeah.
other people think. So, bye.
Bye.